Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of April 4th to the 10th, where I take a look at a couple of stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion, though. Obviously, spring is here, and out here in Southern California, it's getting somewhat warm, but not too warm yet. So sometimes during the summer and even in the fall, it could get, let's just say, it could get a little bit uncomfortable at times. But either way, it is what it is. But anyway, we have 4 stories to cover for this week, including a rumor that Microsoft might be teaming up with Kojima Production on their next game. We do have reports about the latest Switch update that just recently happened, which could, though nothing confirmed at this moment, lead to the idea of more likely that a Switch Pro might happen, though again, nothing confirmed yet. We also had some surprises from Microsoft with Apple Arcade that just released 2 high-profile titles and all stuff, including learning about a new policy shift that they have made recently, though. And we're also hearing reports about the possibility of there might be shortages. There may be a reason why we're seeing shortages of PS5, Xbox Series X's, and even the Switch. Though I'm talking about the regular Switch, not the Switch Lite. That one I'm somehow seem to be seeing more of that than I am with the other Switch and all that stuff. And like anything, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're interested in any of the stories I talk about, I'll have a link down in the description down below of this YouTube video and all. But before we get started, we'll do the quick My 2 Cent part, and that is stories that kind of caught my attention, but not going to go into a huge amount of detail. The first one is that there is a report that someone found a copy of the canceled Castlevania game that was worked on for the Dreamcast. I remember reading about this one a while back, though, and it was supposed to star Simon Belmont's mother and all that stuff. So apparently it's been resurrected, and word has it that it's going to be on eBay and all. So it's just fascinating to see what was going into development in this game and why it really didn't get far and all that stuff. So that was kind of interesting indeed. We also learned that someone made a fan-made 2D Metroid game based around, Metroid Prime and all that stuff. And I will say, judging from what they showed in the demo, it's actually impressive and all that stuff. And I definitely would be open to maybe like a side story or a Metroid game set within a 2D Metroid game set within the Prime timeline. That certainly would be neat. However, being this is Nintendo we're talking about, and Nintendo has a history of being, well, let's just say very protective of their IPs and all that stuff. Sometimes I think they're in the right. Sometimes I do think maybe they go maybe a wee bit overboard in some situations, though. I wouldn't be surprised if they start filing, like takedowns on this, get their legal team and all that stuff. I know not everyone is a fan of that, but it is what it is. And like I said, Nintendo's very known to being very protective of their IPs. Nevertheless, we also learned a suggestion about Balan Wonderworld, and well, let's just say there's reports that the game underperformed in Japan, and there's also reports that the game may have been a massive flop, which honestly, it's sad, but I'm not really shocked to hear this in any way, considering that the demo did not leave a great impression on a lot of folks. Also, we've heard reports about possibly the final boss causing some sort of seizure with the lights, to even taking music out from taking music like the theme for Ghostbusters or something like that. So the response to that game, unfortunately, has not been, well, great or anything like that. Maybe if the game's in the bargain bin, I might try it at one point. But right now, the fact that hearing these reports, assuming this report is true, it's disappointing, but not shocking to hear Balan Wonderworld probably is a commercial flop and a failure. We also learned that E3 will be happening this year, but we now know that it will be a digital event. They're not doing, the convention and all that stuff, at least for this year, though. We won't know for certain next year, though. It definitely will depend on where we are currently with the situation in regards to the coronavirus and all. But it's nice to know that E3 is going to be happening this year. We know that Nintendo will be there, along with Microsoft, Capcom, though. No word on Sony at this time, though. It'll be interesting if they show up this year or not. But it's nice to hear that basically E3 is going to be happening this year, even if it's in a digital form. form. Though I do wonder, assuming things do return to normal, will E3 still stay the digital form? Will they go back to the conventional way, or could we see a hybrid of both? So I'm curious to see about that. We also learned that Monster Hunter Rise has already about shipped now 5 million copies worldwide, which is certainly is good for that franchise. Obviously, the game is doing really well on the Nintendo Switch, so it's going to be really interesting to see Capcom's support for the Nintendo Switch. How far they will go with it, though, and I'm curious to see if we see other games running on the RE engine make their way over to the Nintendo Switch, including the rumored, supposedly, assuming it's true though, fingers crossed that it is, a Resident Evil game that's being designed as a Switch focus, not Switch exclusive, but Switch focus type of a game though. We also learned that supposedly at the same time, we're also learning that a brand new patch is fixing, the save locked out glitch that was reported last week, which is certainly nice. I'm glad that they are addressing the problem, though I do wish they kind of addressed this earlier, but better late than never. That's all I can say, though. We also learned that, surprisingly, Destroy All Humans will be coming to the Nintendo Switch on June 29th and all that stuff. Supposedly, it's based off of the remake of Destroy All Humans that was released, I believe, last year for the PS4 and Xbox One, which is certainly is nice. I'm very curious to see how this game runs on the Nintendo Switch. Excuse me. If it's on the same level as what Kingdom of Amalur Re-Reckoning was in terms of how that ran, then I would be okay with that, though. Don't get me wrong, I would have liked, like I said with that game, I would have liked that running at 60 frames per second, but for the most part, it ran at a stable 30 frames per second, which isn't bad. And if the Destroy All Humans remake on the Switch runs at a stable 30 frames per second, I would be okay with that. And speaking with Destroy All Humans, we are now hearing reports of a possibility that a remake of Destroy All Humans 2 is going to be happening, though. Nothing's confirmed at this moment, but assuming the remake of Destroy All Humans did well for THQ Nordic, it wouldn't surprise me if we hear that a remake does happen. We also learned that Streets of Rage 4 is going to get a new mode and some new characters and all that stuff, which certainly is nice, don't get me wrong, but I certainly would have liked to see more, story DLC for Streets of Rage 4. That would be nice if that ever does happen. We also learned for the Nintendo Switch Online, they have announced Pac-Man 99, which based on what they've showed so far of it, it looks like it's sort of the similar approach what we saw with games like Tetris 99 and Super Mario Bros. 35 and all. So it's really nice that we're getting another exclusive thing for Switch Online. I still wish Nintendo kept Super Mario Bros. 35 up there, don't get me wrong, but still, it's free to download, and if you have a Switch Online service, here's another Battle Royale game you could play on the Nintendo Switch. We also learned next week that Capcom will be doing a showcase for Resident Evil. My guess is that more than likely it's going to be focused on the Resident Evil 4 Village and all that stuff, but they may have a couple surprises. Like I said, I do hope it's that rumored Resident Evil game that supposedly is Switch focused and all that stuff, that it was originally supposedly going to be Resident Evil Revelation 3, but now called Outrage and all that stuff. But my guess is going to be more stuff on Resident Evil Village, at least as far as I'm aware of. We also heard rumors that basically Sonic Colors, the game that was released, I believe, back in 2010 for the Wii, and then also on the Nintendo DS, is possibly getting a remaster. It's supposedly been there's been some reports about that. Nothing confirmed at this time and all that stuff, but I certainly wouldn't be against the idea of a remastered version of Sonic Colors. I think it was probably the best 3D Sonic game that's been out there since, to me, Sonic Heroes that was released back in 2004 for the GameCube, PS2, and the original Xbox. So time will tell if rumor is true or not. I hope it is. I hope to see it come to the Nintendo Switch. We also learned that Neo, The World Ends With You, the sequel to The World Ends With You, is going to be hitting the Switch this July. It's definitely one of the titles I'm looking forward to. Hopefully that one is more enjoyable than The World Ends With You remake, though. It's not that I'm against that game coming to the Nintendo Switch, but that game, trying to play it on the Nintendo Switch was just, in my view, like borderline unplayable, in my opinion. I really wish that they had... I mean, to me, it was like, it worked for the DS, not so much for the Nintendo Switch, at least from my view, though. But judging by what I've seen so far, it definitely looks impressive, and I'm looking forward to that one when it comes this July for the Nintendo Switch, and also to the PS4 as well. And last but not least, though, there was a report earlier of a ratings for Borderlands 3 Director's Cut, and some people pointed to it being for the Nintendo Switch, but apparently it was addressed. It turned out to be it was an error, and now that the Switch has been taken off, now only, like PS5, Xbox Series S and X, though, which is, I'm not shocked by this, though, and all that stuff. I've always taken this with a grain of salt, though, so it's somewhat disappointing, but not shocked, though. It's possible maybe Borderlands 3 might come to the Switch at some point down the road. It could be through the cloud version, or it could be the rumored, Switch Pro and all that. So we'll have to wait and see. But for right now, this Director's Cut for Borderlands 3 apparently is not coming to the Nintendo Switch at this time, as it seems to be leaning more towards, excuse me, the PS5, the Xbox Series S and X. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with the PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and also the Switch, and basically how hard it is to find one, though. I mean, let's be honest, though. For a lot of us, though, it's very difficult to find really a PS5 anywhere, to be exact, even trying to order one and all. And not to mention a Xbox Series S and X, though, even that one's being hard to find, though not as much with the PS5. And even the Nintendo Switch is being hard, is also being very hard for a lot of people to find. Although, like I said earlier, I've seen more Switch Lites than I did with the regular Switch and all that stuff. And it seems a lot of it is basically some of it may have to do with the shortages of components needed to build these systems. Although some of it's also, the whole scalpers and all that stuff. And it looks like there's a very good chance that a lot of us, though, may not be able to get our hands on one until sometime in 2022, though. In an article from Screen Rant, let me get it up, it reads that, quote, Foxcom's chairman recently said chip shortage could remain an issue until mid-2022, which will likely affect PS5 and Xbox Series X and S shipment, though. The article reads that, quote, Chairman of the leading electronic manufacturer Foxconn recently told investors that chips shortage could last until the second quarter of 2022. If so, this will likely affect the production of the already hard-to-find PS5 and Xbox Series SX consoles. Component shortage for the latest console has rested at the forefront of their limited stock since launch, and no one has been able to offer a concrete answer as to when the exact situation will improve. In January, the CEO of the processing chip manufacturer AMD estimated the tightness of supplies could persist well into the year. Microsoft's head of investors relations, Mike Spencer, later said Xbox Series X and S might remain supply constrained throughout the month of June. However, recent revelations from tech companies suggest PlayStation and Xbox fans shouldn't give their hopes up just yet. The often secretive Samsung, for instance, had admitted that it may delay the previous scheduled August release of its new Galaxy Note due to the shortage on semiconductors. And while it seems for a while that the giants like Apple may be spare, new information indicates that every major tech company will take a hit, Sony and Microsoft included, though. As the biggest supplier to the tech groups such as Microsoft, Google, and Apple, Foxcom's words carry a lot of weight. Right now, things aren't looking so good. In an early call this past Tuesday, the Taiwanese manufacturer chairman said its shipments for the year may suffer by upward to 10% because of the chip shortage. Business publication Nikkei Asia reported on the CEO's remark, citing the chairman as saying the supply constraint could extend into the second quarter, or at least second quarter of 2022 at least, though. Foxcom's woes paints a rather grim picture for other electronic manufacturers, if even the heavyweights are estimated a lengthy holdup on components. Relatively lower priority brands like PlayStation and Xbox will continue to struggle in their attempt to secure supplies. In February, even the Biden administration took notice of the semiconductor shortage, given that these supply constraints have affected far more than gaming. Semiconductors are vital to the automotive business, as well as several other avenues of the tech industry. Unfortunately, the lingering effect of the pandemic means such valuable resources are unlikely to become ready accessible anytime soon. So obviously it does sound like, based on what we're hearing right now, if assuming this is all correct, is that odds are there's a very good chance that not everyone is going to be able to get a PS5 or Xbox Series X or S this year. And even the Switch, though, like I mentioned, it seems as though the regular Switch seems to also be impacted. Not so much with the Switch Lite, since I've been seeing a lot of those and a lot of stuff. But still, combined with the whole situation with the scalpers, though, this is not great news for those like me who have been trying to hunt down a PS5, or those who are trying to hunt down an Xbox Series X and S as well. So it does sound like there is a very good chance that there's a good chance that you may not be able to get one this year. That doesn't mean that it's not out of the realm of possibility that you might be lucky enough to pick up a PS5 or an Xbox Series S and X. I mean, there's always a possibility you might be at the right place or at the right time to get it, but odds are there's a very good chance that you may not be able to get it this year, due to obviously one part being the scalpers, but because of shortage of components needed to make the system. So overall, though, it is a little, assuming this information is correct, and I assume it is, it's clear that there are a lot of people that are going to have a hard time trying to find a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. Not that it's hard already, though, but adding the fact that you don't have the components to make these systems just adds more to odds are not everyone's going to be able to get one this year, though. It may have to wait until sometime in 2022. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one, we'll be taking a look at, surprisingly, Apple Arcade, with release of several games that certainly have caught some people's attention, to even a policy shift that Apple is doing in regards of the Apple Arcade. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, I want to be talking about Apple Arcade and all that stuff. Now, some of you may remember back in 2019, Microsoft, or I should say Apple, launched a new service for your iMac, iPhone, your iPad, called Apple Arcade. And the design behind these were games that basically were separate from what you would see on the App Store. These were games that were designed with like no microtransactions or any ads or anything like that. The service was basically follow a model kind of similar to what Microsoft is doing with Xbox Game Pass and all. And I will say, the service, Apple Arcade, isn't bad or anything like that. It depends on what kind of expectations you were setting with Apple Arcade. If you were looking for games to enjoy on your iPhone or iPad or even your iMac or Apple TV, for example, and not have to worry about, microtransactions or ads, then you probably would like Apple Arcade. But if you were expecting Apple Arcade to be on the same level in terms of having something like Outrider or Grand Theft Auto 5 or anything like that, you probably want to lower your expectations, as those aren't the type of games you would see in Apple Arcade, though. Now, I've tried Apple Arcade before, and I still do, and it's not a bad service, but it depends on the type of games you are looking forward into it, and not every game is going to appeal to everyone. Well, recently though, two high-profile titles saw a release on the Apple Arcade, plus a recent report that shows that basically a shift in Apple's policy in regards of the Apple Arcade though. Those two games are Fantasian, if I'm saying the name correctly, and World of Demons, surprisingly from Platinum Game, which is basically their fifth game as part of their so-called Platinum 5 or Platinum 4 to be exact. And first of all, in an article posted on Destructoid, it reads that, quote, Phantasm, Fantascian, the new Dormanic, Dioramic, RPG from Final Fantasy creator, launched on Apple Arcade, but it turns out that wasn't the only game coming to the service. Apple announced today that over 30 games are coming to the subscription gaming service, spread across new games and old classics. Along with the new original, Apple launched two new categories: Timeless Classics and App Store Greats. The Classic selection has some long-time standards, a chess and a backgammon, Backgammon app, for example, as well as the pretty solid good Sudoku Sudoku. App Store Greats Mirror hold a number of mobile classic ad-frees and fully unlocks, including Fruit Ninja Classic, Mini Metros, and Threes, which are responsible for this author's a lot of lost hours. A big surprise is Platinum Games' World of Demons, the action mobile game first shown back in 2018 and later quietly disappeared, has snuck on to the Apple Arcade list. It got some really striking Okami visual styles for its tale of samurai and yokai. And of course, Phantasm, as mentioned, which has a really interesting battle system that lets you deposit monsters into a pocket dimension and battle them all at once. Plus, it has a bunch of miniatures and dioramas that look pretty good. That look pretty, to be exact. Meanwhile, in an interview with IGN, Platinum Game explained not why they restarted World of Demons and all that stuff, and also explained why they put it into the Apple Arcade service, though. Let's see if I can find certain parts of it, though. Okay, some of the things that they mentioned about Apple Arcade is this, quote, Apple Arcade reaches a very wide global audience, far greater than our fan base. It's bigger than we could have ever imagined, so many type of people are playing on that platform. Within that, we are presenting a very traditional Japanese setting that feature yokai, which are deeply integrated in Japanese folklore. There's something that a Japanese studio like us can do well, and on top of that, Platinum Games can add our own unique style. It was a motivating factor that we could present this concept to the world. I'm very curious to know what the global audience will make of it. Yokais are perceived a certain way in Japan, but overseas it might be very different. It's the same with ninjas. Our image of a ninja in Japan is different than the overseas, but the ninjas have attracted an iconic presence. This will be a good opportunity for us to gauge how yokais are perceived, and I think it will have an interesting effect on the way we at Platinum Games make games. Further on, it says that, quote, by all accounts, World of Demons seem to have been a labor of love for Platinum and one they have iterated on over time. Then, in 2019, shortly after Apple Arcade was announced, the opportunity to release the game on Apple's subscription service encouraged the studio to knuckle down for an April 2021 release on ISO, Apple TV, and macOS. Lots of us in the studio use phones, and ISO is a major platform in its own right. It was a challenge to also support macOS and Apple TV and to design both touchscreen controls and controller support, but it was fun to develop for an Apple device, and it's a platform with a lot of users. They also acknowledged that Android users might feel left out in the cold. They likened this to the situation to console platform exclusivity, while explaining the benefit of targeting one specific service that that it helps them focus on development. The team grew from roughly 40 people to roughly 60 over the course of development, with action game specific specialists coming in and out from other development teams at Platinum. It seems that for this veteran console game studio, development for mobile was a challenging unto itself, though. It continues that we haven't even built up enough experience yet to tell you how publishing on a mobile is different than on consoles. The development staff never knew what tomorrow would bring, and every day was exciting. There's no doubt it would be easier to release title after title on the same platform every time, and we would build up know-how that way. But Platinum Games, a company that likes to try new things and to be uncertain about what's coming next. We were also interested in having a proper crack at the mobile gaming market, so this had been a good opportunity. It's been tough, though. When asked about for the developer's opinion on Apple Arcade, they said that they consider it a fantastic service and exploit EXTOLS, the virtues of a subscription service for mobile games. They added that the key to success on any platform is the quality of content available on it, and in the case of Apple Arcade, I hope World of Demons can be part of that. I hope that our game can be a catalyst to get the service into more gamers' hands. Apple Arcade admirable stance on microtransactions seem to be another point of attraction for the developer. Games on the service are not allowed to include them at all. While World of Demons originally as a free-to-play game with in-game purchases, tunes to a more traditional form seem to be a better fit for Platinum Games. I think it's okay if a game has been properly designed to accommodate microtransactions, but it's just a different way of making games, said Platinum. I love that Apple is aiming to build a collection of games that are safe for kids to play, too. Again, some people may or may not agree with this and all that stuff, but it's very interesting to see a big publisher or a big developer like Platinum Games bring something like World of Demons over and all that stuff. And personally, I would like to see more games like that come to the Apple Arcade, whether it's the Fantasia, the one from Mistwalker, that's the RPG, to something like World of Demons. I definitely would be open to see more of these type of games on something like the Apple Arcade service. It would give, because to me, I feel like I like the direction that Apple Arcade is going with it, and more of these kind of games would be nice and all. That said, though, it does seem that, at least according to one article from Macworld, it seems as that Apple maybe shift some of their policies around in order to make Apple Arcade, in their view, a bit better. In an opinion piece from Macworld, it reads that, quote, when it was first announced in March of 2019, we praised a high ambitious level. It appears that Apple Arcade would be full of original games instead of simply match 3 puzzles and time wasters. If Apple could maintain the pace, we argue that it might evaluate the perception of mobile games in general. A year later, after the service has been live for 6 months, we notice a bit of a shift in priorities. Apple seems to recognize that games that do well on mobile don't usually resemble the big-time initiative AAA titles you find on consoles, though. Apple recognized that the evaluated game experience aren't for everyone was a good thing. We still got big mobile epics like Beyond the Steel Sky and art house story-driven titles like NECROBARISTA, but also quick time killers like Crossy Road Castle and Round Guard. It was a smart move. Flooding Apple Arcade with big budget blockbusters and high concept art games is a turnoff for a lot of iPhone users. Many people just want a simple match 3 or word puzzle, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even so-called core gamers often prefer brief, simple pick up and play games on their phone, though. But launching new titles exclusively to a subscription service people don't care much about is a death knell for new games. And Apple insists on a only on Apple Arcade policy all but guarantees that games, no matter how good, struggle to find an audience, though. Apple Arcade has set rules and expectations associated with it, and some of them make total sense. For instance, Apple games can't have ads or any in-game ads, microtransactions of any kind. Excuse me. That's great and consumer-friendly approach for a subscription game service, but not all the rules were as player forward. Though Apple policy drew a clear line in the sand. Games on Apple Arcade could not appear in the regular App Store, they could not appear on any other mobile platform, and they could not appear on any other subscription service on any platform and all. If you're a developer, that's bad news. You had to give up on the Android market entirely, and if you want your games on other platforms like PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, you can't make your games available on subscription service like Xbox Game Pass. That policy had little value as a player too. The idea of subscribing to a service that contains only content you can't get anywhere else does not have the catch Apple seemed to think it does. It's great to have a bunch of exclusive, but avoiding great mobile games available in the App Store or on Android devices gives the service less value, not more. And it also continues with, Apple just dropped over 30 new games in the Apple Arcade, the biggest ever expansion of content since its September 2019 launch. But the big news isn't the flood of new games, it's the apparent change in policy. These new games include exclusives, and for the first time ever, a bunch of great titles you can already find in the App Store and on Android. Take Threes, for example. The original number double sliding games was shamelessly copied by 2048, which became far more popular being free. Threes is a far better game, but it costs $6 on the App Store. It's also available on Google Play for Android devices. It's exactly the kind of game that adds tremendous value to Apple Arcade, but wasn't allowed under the old rules. Technically, Apple Arcade's version is a separate app named Threes Plus with a slightly changed icon because the exact same app can exist in two places in the Apple Store at two different prices, but for all intended purpose, it's the same app. The new Apple Arcade release are also full of other stuff doing Chameleon Run. Another great ISO and Android game is also Chameleon Run Plus, Monument Valley, Mini Metroid, Fruit Ninja Classics, Good Sudoku. All excellent games that already exist in the App Store, many also on Google Play for Android devices, and now in Apple Arcade with only Plus in the title. Another apparent change in policy is the need for games to be available on all Apple platforms. Prior to last week's big update, Apple Arcade games have been available on iPhone, iPod Max, and Apple TV. Many of these new pluses are only available for iPhone and iPads. It's a smart move on Apple's part. Cross-device playability is a wonderful benefit, but you shouldn't keep a great game out of the hands of subscribers just because the developer never envisioned it being played on platforms that don't have touchscreen and all that stuff. So it certainly is nice that Apple is changing some of their policies. Whether or not this will basically help Apple Arcade in the long run or not, that remains to be seen and all that stuff, but it is definitely encouraging that they are making some changes to their policies in regards of Apple Arcade. So overall, I like that they're changing some of their policy, though. It's obviously they're bringing classic games over to Apple Arcade, like Fruit Ninja and all that stuff, and doing so in a way that doesn't have, in-game, app purchases and all that. But at the same time, I do want to see original titles like World of Demons and Fantasian on the Apple Arcade service, though. I definitely like that kind of approach, these kind of games that I could enjoy on my iPhone, iPad, or even on my iMac, for that example, and all that stuff. And if Apple can nail some of these stuff, get more of those type of games while changing some of their policy, Apple Arcade could be a good subscription service. It may not be on the level of, say, like what Xbox Game Pass is, given the type of games that are on Xbox Game Pass, but it might be something that those who have an iPhone or an iMac or even an iPad would enjoy playing and all. As for me, I don't mind some of the quick games like Fruit Ninja, but I definitely would like to see, like I said before, more games like World of Demons, or even basically, the one from Mistwalker and all that stuff, which I'm currently enjoying. And so far, I have to say, I'm enjoying that one and world of demons, indeed. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to part 3. And this one has to do with a update that the Nintendo Switch recently has gotten. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at supposedly the new update for the Nintendo Switch and all, and how there may be some hidden features into this new update, to be exact. Now, I'm sure most of you know by now, Switch has updated to 12.0 and all, and supposedly all it did is just basically, supposedly that's the claim, that it basically fixes, I think, the cloud update. If I'm checking that correctly, I think it does. Let me check. Supposedly it's basically supposed to address, like some of the stuff like, save data backup feature and all that stuff. So it wasn't the high requests that some people would wanted, like, some of us wanted some people wanted themes. I personally would have liked to see folders into basically the Nintendo Switch, make it easier to organize your games and all that stuff. I mean, 3DS had it, the Wii U had it. I don't understand why Nintendo has not added folders into the Nintendo Switch, though. It seems kind of ridiculous and all that. But anyway, back on point, though, it seems as though there may be reports that some of the firmware update may be hiding some information that could signal a couple things. Bluetooth might be coming to the Nintendo Switch, and the possibility of a brand new dock, which many speculate this could be the rumored Switch Pro and all that stuff. In an article from Nintendo Life, the first one points out about the Bluetooth part, and here's what the article says. Quote, "The Nintendo Switch recent 12.0.0 firmware update may not seem much based on the official patch notes, but according to data miners, there's much more exciting information on the back of it. Following from yesterday suggesting a new Switch dock could be on the way, I'll get to that one in a minute, it has now supposedly been discovered that this latest update has added audio support to the system's Bluetooth driver. This information has once again been shared by well-known Nintendo data miner Oatmeal Drone. As further noticed by Oatmeal Dome, apologize for that. Bluetooth audio has been a highly requested feature on the Nintendo Switch, and with Bluetooth headphones becoming increasingly common, we're sure that many players would appreciate being able to connect certain wireless headsets to their system. Meanwhile, another article from Nintendo Life seems to point to that it points to possibly a new dock or something like that. Anyway, according to the article, it reads that, quote, yesterday, Nintendo rolled out version 12.0.0 of the Switch firmware. While you might have been expecting it to be something significant, according to the official patch notes, all it did was fix an issue tied to the save data backup feature. Is it hiding other things, though? While we already had a conversation about this, it seems data miners may have now discovered something big. There's apparently new information emerged that firmware 12.0.0 supposedly contains evidence of a new dock design for a newer model that can receive updates, though. Aulx, A-U-L-A, as you might recall, is believed to be the code name of the rumored 4K Nintendo Switch. Oatmeal Dome also noted that it could potentially be an update for the current Switch dock, but as far as they know, it never received one before. Quote, the dock itself only contains a USB chip, a MYDP HDMI converter, and a flash memory to store its firmware. I'm not sure what the point of an update would be considering how basic it is inside. As far as I'm aware of, it's never received one before. The same source further mentioned how 12.0.0 adds the following eternal setting, 4K DP dash bomb dash preference dash over dash USB 3.30, which seemingly makes sense given the rumor about 4K output in the new model though. Now, granted, all this information obviously needs to be taken with a grain of salt. We don't know how much of this is true, but assuming it is and all that stuff, I could see a scenario where the dock could act as one that displays the 4K when you hook your Nintendo Switch up to, obviously, like, say, a 4K TV. I mean, although I suspect that if 4K is going to happen for the Nintendo Switch, I still think it's going to be more on the level of just, say, upscaling to 4K or anything like that. I can't see them doing actual 4K, like on the level of what you see like the PS5 or the Xbox Series X or S or anything like that. So I don't see that going to happen, but I could see a way where the dock could be the thing that could actually, you know, when plugging into the dock, it does do the 4K display. As far as Bluetooth though, if this is true, and assuming it is, I do think it's a welcome addition. I think it was a little disappointed when the Switch was announced that they didn't add Bluetooth support, considering that I think it would have been nice for people to be able to use that, especially with voice chat. I mean, no offense, as much as I like Nintendo, I really don't agree with their voice chat approach, which is, you know, use your phone and all that stuff, compared to how, like, the PS5 or the, you know, the PlayStation and the Xbox controller, where in this case they have you, and this is the Xbox Series S controller, where, you know, you plug in, you know, your headset right here and all. So it seemed kind of ridiculous for Nintendo to not add something like Bluetooth, especially for those who wanted to take a voice chat approach. But assuming this information is true and all, I certainly, it could be a sign that possibly that this Switch Pro may be happening after all. There were in the past data mines that pointed to the possibility of a new model Switch, which later turned out to be the regular Switch with a better chip in it, to the Switch Lite. So it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. So overall, still a rumor at this time, but given what we've been hearing and what we've been, you know, have also been hearing comments of Nintendo's made in the past, this is sounding more and more likely this Switch Pro or Switch.to or whatever Nintendo's going to call it, it's going to happen. I'm starting to look into this, that this has started to turn into more like where there's smoke, there's fire, and there certainly is a lot of smoke coming out lately with this whole Switch Pro and all that stuff. The question is, where's the fire, though? Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part. And this one has to do with the rumors about Microsoft and Kojima Production possibly teaming up. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at what apparently is a rumor going around, basically, of Microsoft and Kojima Production could be trying to work something out and all that stuff. Now, one of the things that I have noticed this generation, though, at least with Phil Spencer under the leadership over at the Xbox division, is that one area, along with, you know, Game Pass and buying studios and all that stuff, has been trying to get Japanese developers on board and all that stuff. This is different than when it was during the Xbox One era, where they took a complete 180 from what they did during the Xbox 360 era and all that stuff. You know, the whole focus on this always online, one and all entertainments and all that stuff, which didn't exactly click very well and all. That ultimately led to one of the reasons why the PS4 dominated the Xbox One for quite some time, though. Although I will admit that when Phil Spencer took over, though, he did sort of at least put the Xbox One in a better position than it was during launch. Nowhere near the level of overtaking the PS4, but definitely in a better spot than it was before and all that stuff. And so recent rumors seem to point out the fact that they may be teaming up with Kojima Production to possibly publish a game and all. In an article posted on Game Radar, it reads that, quote, Hideki Kojima, apologize for not saying his name correctly, is reportedly in talks with Xbox to publish his next game. According to a report from VentureBeat, the Death Stranding and Metal Gear Solid developer is in talks with Microsoft about publishing his next game, according to a source familiar with the matter. The report also suggests that the potential deal has been in the works for several weeks already, stating that the Xbox chief Phil Spencer deliberately featured a statue of the Kojima production company mascot in the background of a recent stream and hinted towards the partnership. It's worth pointing out Phil Spencer also had a Nintendo Switch back there as well. It's not known whether the deal has been signed yet, but VentureBeat also suggests that Kojima is the focus of a Microsoft plan to leverage Japanese talents. Spencer has previously denied reports that Microsoft is turning its attention to the region, in which it has historically underperformed in comparison to the PlayStation, where the PS5 and Xbox Series X launched in November 2020. Sony's new console outsold Microsoft effortlessly by nearly 5-1. Whether or not Xbox is focused on Japanese developers, there's little denying that the potential exclusive offered by a publishing deal with Kojima would be a significant coup for a console family that has struggled with big name exclusive in recent years, and as a potential addition to the recent Bethesda acquisition. While no official announcement from either Microsoft or Kojima production, it's worth remembering that even if talks did happen, there's no guarantee that an agreement will be made. It's also important to note that Death Stranding, Kojima's first game with his new studio, was a PlayStation launch exclusive. That said, the studio confirmed it was working on a new game back in October last year, with some suggestion pointing to an announcement that's not very far away. And Niche Gamer recently shot down, basically pointed out that the supposed report of the game Abandon that was being shown by Sony was not being developed by Kojima Production, which led to the developers actually speaking out. One of the things they wrote was, quote, "When Sony announced a mysterious new PS5 exclusive with Abandon, many people guessed it's a secret Hideki Kojima next game. While that's not a case," and it points out the suggestion about Microsoft and all that stuff. So, as far as whether this will happen or not, I'm very curious to see where this goes, though. For what I understand, though, Death Stranding, though, the game was controversial. It's not everybody was a big fan of it. It was sort of like, in a way, a walking simulation type of a game. Some people liked it. Some people didn't, though. As far as how well it did, supposedly there's reports that it basically flopped on the PS4, but supposedly did well on PC. So I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% whether that's true or not. For them to work with Microsoft, it would be very interesting to see exactly what they could get out of this. I mean, could we see maybe a brand? What kind of game Hideki Kojima could work on with Microsoft? Maybe it could be something like maybe a spiritual successor to Zone of the Endar series, or maybe them doing that, maybe a spiritual successor to that PT, which was supposedly the Silent Hill game before, Konami pulled the plug on that, though, at the time when he worked at Konami, but then left after the whole Metal Gear Solid 5 debacle. So I'm a little curious to see what this rumor turns out, whether that's true or not. Maybe we'll hear an announcement at E3 this year. So it remains to be seen, though, but overall, it is interesting. There might be some truth to it, considering how aggressive Microsoft has been this generation so far. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that Kojima Production and Microsoft could be teaming up for maybe a collaboration of a game of some sort. Whether it comes to fruition or not, that remains to be seen at this time. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, These are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the whole situation with components basically not being available for, you know, the making of the PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and possibly the Switch.to? Do you think that it is possible we may have to wait until 2022 to finally get, for people who want to try to get their hands on a PS5 or an Xbox Series S or X, or even the Nintendo Switch, though? Or do you think that people will be able to get their hands on those systems this year? What are your thoughts about Apple Arcade? Are you excited about these 2 new games that have been released on the Apple Arcade service? Do you agree with Apple changing some of their policies now? Do you think this will attract more people to try the service? Or do you think it's not really going to change this current situation that Apple's facing with Apple Arcade? What are your thoughts about the Switch 12.0 update, though? Do you think it is a signal that perhaps maybe this, what these data miners find, this could lead to Bluetooth finally being supported on the Nintendo Switch? Do you think this whole thing about a brand new dock that does 4K, do you think all this points to a Switch Pro? Or do you think it's just nothing really that important at all? And what do you think about Kojima Production and Microsoft working together? Do you think this rumor is true in any way? And if so, what kind of game do you think that Kojima Production and Microsoft could technically work on? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? Excuse me. As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you're watching this on the YouTube and if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video if you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!